My name is Faiza. I was born in a small village in Punjab, where tradition weighs heavier than dreams. Here, girls are expected to marry early, stay inside the walls of their homes, and never question their fate. Education is a luxury no one wants to waste on daughters. But I was different. I wanted more. I dreamed of bright lights, city streets, and becoming a star, the kind I saw on television since electricity arrived in our village. I imagined myself as the heroine in every drama I watched, walking gracefully, speaking boldly, and living a life of admiration and applause. Everyone said I was beautiful, more beautiful than most village girls. Perhaps it was the fresh air and natural diet, or maybe it was my stubborn spirit that made my eyes brighter and skin fairer. But my dreams weren't just about looks. I wanted to live a life I chose for myself, not one written by others. I often begged my father to take me to the city. I wanted to study, to see the world beyond our fields, but he would shake his head and say, "The city air corrupts girls, forget about it." His rejection felt like a door slammed shut on my dreams. It hurt me deeply. Couldn't he take me to the city just once? But nothing broke me more than the day he told me that a proposal had come for me from Karamat, my cousin, the son of Chacha Karim. And worse, he had already agreed to it. Karamat. The very name sent a chill down my spine. A tall, dark, uneducated man with rough hands and a silent temper. I had watched him from afar. He never smiled, never showed kindness. And now I was to marry him? I refused outright. "I won't marry him, Abba. If you want me to marry someone, find a man who works in the city, not a backward villager." He stared at me in disbelief. "Since when did you grow such a sharp tongue? You think a city boy will marry a girl like you? You don't even have a basic education." Tears rolled down my cheeks. "Whose fault is that, Abba? You never let me study." But he didn't listen. Within days, he performed a small ceremony to seal the engagement. Word spread fast, and villagers poured in to congratulate us. Each smile felt like a slap. I was drowning, and no one even noticed. I lay awake every night wondering how to escape this prison disguised as a village. And then, fate gave me a chance. It was just another afternoon. I was taking food to Abba in the fields when a black SUV stopped near the mango trees. I froze as I saw who stepped out. Chaudhry Fayaz, the landowner's son. Two other men were with him, but all I could see was him. I lowered my gaze and tried to slip past quietly, but he called out, "Aren't you Faiza, Chacha Barkat's daughter?" I turned around slowly, my heart racing in my chest. "Yes," I said quietly, "I'm Faiza." Chaudhry Fayaz smiled, a smooth, easy smile that unsettled me. He looked at me from head to toe as if trying to place a memory. "You've grown up. Don't you remember playing in our Haveli when we were kids? You used to follow me around like a shadow." I did remember, though I had hoped he wouldn't. I was just a farmer's daughter, and he was the Chaudhry's son. Our worlds had always been apart. Yet something about his voice was warm, even kind. I nodded silently. He stepped closer and lowered his voice. "Faiza, you're too pretty for this village. What are you still doing here? You belong in the city, not in this dusty corner of the world." His words stunned me. It was as though he could read my soul. I felt a strange mix of flattery and confusion. No one had ever spoken to me like that, not with such certainty. "I want to go to the city," I blurted out before I could stop myself. "I want to be in dramas on TV, but no one understands. My father won't allow it. He's forcing me to marry someone I don't even like." Fayaz exchanged glances with his friends. Then he leaned in, lowering his voice even more. "If you truly want that life, I can help you. I have contacts in the city, directors, producers, people who can make you a star. But you'll need to leave this place. With me." His words wrapped around me like a promise of salvation. My heart pounded in my ears. Was this the moment I had been waiting for? I want that life, I said desperately. But my father won't allow it, and now I'm engaged. He smirked slightly. "Dreams demand sacrifice, Faiza. If you want to become a heroine, you'll need to leave without looking back. Don't tell anyone, not even your father." He gave me a time and place. "Tomorrow night, 11 o'clock. Meet us outside the village near the old berry tree. We'll take you straight to the city. I stood frozen, torn between fear and desire. Could I really leave everything behind? He stepped closer. Don't worry. Once you're on TV, your father will be proud. The whole village will talk about you. You'll be a queen among them. I don't know what spell he had cast, but his words played like music in my head all evening. For the first time, someone was offering me the life I had only dared to imagine. That night, I couldn't sleep. My heart was in a war with my conscience, but in the end, my hunger for freedom and fame won. I packed a small bundle with trembling hands. I didn't tell a soul, not even my mother. The next night, I slipped out of my house, careful not to make a sound. The village was dark, silent. Only the wind knew my secret. And as I reached the berry tree, I saw the headlights of the SUV. He had come, and so had my destiny. As I stepped into the SUV, a strange chill ran down my spine. Chaudhry Fayaz was in the front seat, his two friends sitting in the back. I took a deep breath and sat between them, clutching my small bundle to my chest. The city lights were a distant dream, but my heart was racing with excitement and fear all at once. Fayaz turned around from the front and smiled. You made the right decision, Faiza. This is the beginning of your new life. Just a few days and you'll be shining on TV? I nodded silently. I didn't know what to say. I kept telling myself that sacrifices were necessary for success. The silence in the car was thick, broken only by the hum of the engine and occasional glances from the boys beside me. They looked at me often, longer than was necessary. I tried to hide my discomfort by pulling my dupatta around myself tighter, but I could feel their eyes even through the fabric. We drove through the night. I didn't recognize anything outside the window, just unfamiliar roads and shadows. By morning, we entered the city. The air felt heavier and the buildings taller than anything I had ever seen. My heart fluttered. I had finally arrived in the world of my dreams. It took 2 more hours before we reached a massive bungalow, far larger and grander than the village Haveli. I followed Fayaz inside. The floors gleamed like mirrors, chandeliers sparkled above, and every corner whispered of wealth. To me, it was a palace. Fayaz led me to a room on the upper floor. Rest here, he said kindly. We've traveled all night. We'll talk in the evening. There's much to do. I thanked him quietly and sat on the bed. The cool air of the air conditioner was a strange luxury. The bed was soft, warm, and comforting. As I lay down, exhaustion took over. For a few blissful hours, I slept like a child, believing my new life was finally beginning. When I woke, the sun had dipped low and there was a soft knock at the door. Fayaz entered holding a shopping bag. Here, he said, placing it on the bed. Wear this. Some important guests are coming tonight, producers and directors. First impressions matter. You must look like a heroine. I hesitated but took the bag with a smile. After he left, I opened it slowly and my heart stopped. Inside were clothes I had never worn before. Tiny, tight, revealing. The kind of outfits I had only seen city actresses wear in commercials. My throat went dry. I had never even removed my dupatta in front of strangers, and now I was being asked to wear this? But then I remembered his words, dreams demand sacrifice. I took a long breath. I wanted to shine. I wanted to escape. I wanted to prove that I could become someone. So, with trembling hands, I changed. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. The girl staring back was glowing, but not with joy. With fear, with uncertainty, with the weight of every wrong decision clinging to her skin. A few moments later, the door creaked open again, and Fayaz entered with a strange, unreadable smile. The moment Fayaz stepped into the room, my heart skipped a beat. I tried covering myself with my arms, suddenly ashamed of how exposed I felt. The dupatta I had left behind at home now felt like a piece of my soul I had abandoned. Fayaz's eyes roamed over me unapologetically, and I could barely look him in the eye. You look stunning, he said, his voice low, too smooth. This is exactly what they look for in a heroine. I managed a weak smile, clutching my hands nervously. He took a step closer. I took one back. He noticed and chuckled. No need to be shy, Faiza, he said softly. If you keep hiding, how will you ever win hearts on the screen? His words were meant to comfort, but they unsettled me more. I wanted to believe that this discomfort was just part of the path, temporary, necessary. He handed me a small bottle of perfume and a pair of heels. Be ready. They'll come in one by one. Just smile, sit confidently, and don't say no. This is how every star is born. My eyebrows furrowed. One by one? I asked. He nodded. The producers, directors, and sponsors. They need to see how serious you are. If you impress them, your future is made. A strange weight sank in my chest. This wasn't what I imagined. Where were the cameras, the auditions, the rehearsals? Why was everything happening in a closed room? He noticed my hesitation. His smile faded slightly. Don't tell me you're backing out now. You agreed. You wanted this. I felt cornered. There was no going back. Not after leaving my home, my family, and everything behind. I nodded, just to end the moment. He turned and left, locking the door behind him. Not with a click, but with a finality that echoed in the room. Moments later, the door opened again. A young man entered, well-dressed, hair gelled, eyes sharp. He looked at me like he owned the air between us. He smiled and sat on the bed casually. So, you're the girl who wants to be a star? He asked. I nodded silently, unsure of what to say. He leaned in. Then let's see how badly you want it. I froze. He motioned for me to sit beside him. My hands trembled. Every fiber of my being screamed to run, but my legs refused to move. I sat beside him, unsure of everything now, my dreams, my choices, even my identity. He raised his hand, touched my shoulder, and in an instant my skin crawled. I pulled away instinctively, but he tightened his grip. Don't make this hard, he whispered. All of them went through this. If you want the fame, you have to pay the price. And with that, the nightmare began. The dream I once chased was no longer shining. It was burning. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. My voice had abandoned me, just like everything else I had believed in. The man shoved me back on the bed with a force I wasn't prepared for. My hands pushed against his chest, but he was stronger, more determined. His fingers clawed at the very clothes he had once complimented, ripping apart my illusion of glamour and success. You wanted this, didn't you? He growled. This is the audition. Tears streamed down my face, burning hot as shame and fear tore through me. My body struggled, but my spirit had already begun to shatter. He violated me without hesitation, like I wasn't a person, just a product to be tested. And when he was done, he zipped up, smirked, and left without a word. I lay there motionless, numb, my soul curled up in a corner where he couldn't reach it. My body ached. My mind spun. And before I could catch my breath, the door opened again. Another man, then another, and another. They came like shadows, one after another, each one stripping away what little was left of me. Some laughed, some said nothing, some even gave me advice, like I was some rookie they were training for stardom. I lost count after the fourth. My throat was raw from silent sobbing. My skin bore bruises I didn't yet feel. Every time the door creaked, I prayed it would be the end. But it never was. No one asked for my name. No one cared who I was. They only saw the girl from the village who had dared to dream. By the time the eighth man walked out, I wasn't even Faiza anymore. I was a broken shell left on a luxurious bed in a cursed palace of lies. My clothes were torn, my body was wounded, my heart was gone. And then, finally, silence. For a brief moment, I thought I was dead. And I hoped I was. At least, death would be kinder. But the door opened again, and when I looked up, my breath caught in my throat, not from fear, but disbelief. Standing there with wide eyes and trembling lips was Karamat, my fiancé, my enemy, my only hope. His eyes scanned the room, my torn clothes, the blood on the sheets, the bruises on my arms, and then landed on me. For the first time, I saw a man break without being touched. I reached for him with weak hands. "Help me," I whispered, not knowing if the words even left my lips. He didn't say a word. He just walked in and everything inside me begged for mercy. Days passed in quiet recovery. Karamat never questioned me, never pried into the details of that night. His silence wasn't ignorance, it was grace. He treated me with dignity, like a man who wasn't trying to fix a broken thing, but simply choosing to love what remained. Each morning, he'd go out for work, and I would sit by the window, watching the fields sway in the breeze. The same fields that once felt like a cage now seemed like safety. I had returned not as a dreamer chasing stars, but as a woman who had touched fire and lived to feel the wind again. One afternoon, Karamat came home with a small bag. Inside was a notebook and a few pencils. "You wanted to learn," he said gently, placing them on the table. "Let's start now." I couldn't speak, I just nodded, my throat too tight with emotion. That night, he helped me write my own name for the first time. My hands trembled, but his patience never did. Slowly, I began to see what real love looked like. It wasn't found in city lights or cameras. It was in the quiet kindness of a man who chose to protect instead of punish. Karamat, the man I once rejected for his rough appearance, now felt like the only light I truly trusted. The village still talked, of course. Whispers followed me wherever I went, but Karamat never let it affect us. "Let them speak," he would say. They don't know the fire you walked through." For the first time in my life, I didn't need to be a heroine on television. I had found a stage within these walls, a stage where love didn't need an audience and where healing began one gentle word at a time. Our Nika was a quiet affair, but my heart was louder than it had ever been. As I sat beside Karamat, the same man I had once dismissed, I realized how destiny sometimes brings us back. Not to punish us, but to teach us. That night, as he placed a simple ring on my finger, I felt as if my shattered soul had finally found a place to belong. In the days that followed, my relationship with my parents began to heal. My mother would quietly hold my hand, her eyes full of unspoken guilt. My father, though reserved, began leaving small fruits outside my room every morning, his own silent way of saying he still cared. But it was Karamat who became my anchor. He never brought up the past, never made me feel ashamed. Instead, he encouraged me to grow, to learn, and most importantly, to forgive myself. I started teaching younger girls in the village how to read and write. In their eyes, I saw a reflection of the girl I used to be, full of dreams, but naive to the world's cruelty. Each evening, Karamat would sit with me under the neem tree and listen as I read aloud from my notebook. Our conversations slowly shifted from pain to poetry, from regret to laughter. And one night, as we sat together in silence, he whispered, "Faiza, you're stronger than anyone I've ever known." Tears welled in my eyes, not because I was broken anymore, but because I was whole again. And this time, not through fame or fantasy, but through truth, love, and a man who saw me not as what I was, but as what I could become. Sometimes a ruined dream isn't the end. It's just the beginning of a better story. Karamat didn't rush to hold me. He didn't cry, didn't shout. He simply stood there, staring at me as though he was trying to decide whether I was real or already dead. His silence pierced deeper than any of the hands that had touched me. And then, without a word, he walked over, picked up a chadar from a nearby chair, and gently placed it over my trembling body. The warmth of that cloth was the first mercy I had felt in what seemed like an eternity. But then, he did something I hadn't expected. He spat. Right on my face. The shock was worse than the pain. I flinched. Not because it hurt, but because it shattered whatever hope I had left. "Is this what you ran away for?" he asked bitterly, his voice thick with disgust and disappointment. "To be sold like an animal?" 8 men, Faiza. 8. And you still call this a dream? I wanted to disappear. I tried to speak, to explain, to beg, but nothing would come out. I just looked at him, my eyes pleading for something, pity perhaps or understanding. "That day I told you to stay away from Chaudhry Fayaz," he continued, pacing the room like a man fighting demons. "I warned you, I begged you, but you thought I was backward, ugly, useless." He turned, his eyes like fire. "Well, tell me now, Faiza, was the city worth it? Was this the glamour you wanted?" I buried my face in my hands, the chadar slipping from my shoulders. My shame had no boundaries now. My dreams had turned into a nightmare I could never wake up from. He took a deep breath and turned away. Do you know how I found you? He asked, softer now. I was sent here this morning to clean the bungalow. Fayaz always calls me when they've had a party like this. I've been doing their dirty work for months. He paused, staring at the floor, and I didn't want to come inside. I never do. I never go near the girls. But today I saw something on the stairs. Your anklet. The one my mother gave you the day of our engagement. The one I bought with my own hands. His voice broke for a second. I knew it was you, and my heart stopped. He looked at me again, this time not with anger, but with something deeper, pain, betrayal, and somewhere buried beneath all of it, love. Faiza, he whispered, how will you go back now? How will you face your parents, your village, yourself? I had no answer, only tears. And regret. Karamat stood there, his hands clenched, his breath uneven. I could feel his storm, and yet he was trying to stay calm. For me or for himself, I didn't know. I slowly sat up, clutching the chadar close, my body aching and my soul in ruins. Please, take me home, I whispered, barely able to meet his eyes. He looked at me long and hard, then finally nodded. Cover yourself properly, he said, his voice rough but not cruel. We'll leave now, but remember, once we return, nothing will be the same. With trembling hands, I adjusted the chadar and stood up. Each step felt like walking through thorns. He guided me out of the room quietly, down the same stairs where my anklet had betrayed me. The sunlight outside blinded me for a moment. After the darkness I had been drowning in, it felt almost foreign. He took me to a friend's small room in a rundown part of the city. You'll stay here for a few days, he said. No one knows you're here. I told them you're my wife. I was shocked at the word, wife. After everything I had done, or what had been done to me, how could he still offer me even a sliver of dignity? I wanted to fall at his feet and beg forgiveness, but shame chained my body. I simply nodded and turned away, tears silently soaking into the pillow that wasn't mine. The next few days were a blur. I didn't speak. I didn't eat much. I just sat by the window, staring at the walls, wondering how the stars I once chased had become ashes in my hands. Karamat brought food and sat nearby, but never asked questions. Not once did he try to touch me or even speak harshly again. He just waited. On the fifth night, he said, "We're going back tomorrow." My heart stopped. He saw the panic in my eyes. "Don't worry," he added gently. "I'll handle it." The next morning, as we entered the village, heads turned. People stared. Whispers followed us like a shadow. My heart beat wildly with every step. My father and mother were at the gate. My mother rushed to me and hugged me tightly, crying endlessly. My father, on the other hand, looked away, shame filling his eyes. Then came the village elders, the questions, the accusations. But before anyone could speak too harshly, Karamat stepped forward and raised his voice. "She came with me. She wanted to see the city. I knew her parents wouldn't allow it, so I took her quietly. It was wrong, but I was with her. No one else. Blame me." A gasp went through the crowd. People murmured in disbelief. And then, his father, Chacha Karim, slapped him across the face. "She's your fiancée, not your wife. How dare you take her without telling us?" Karamat held his ground, silently accepting the blow. His eyes didn't flinch. "Then make her my wife," he said. The silence was deafening, and in that silence, for the first time, I felt the weight of what love actually looked like. Not sweet words or city dreams, but sacrifice, honor, and a man standing alone against the world for the girl he loved. As the village murmurs swelled into arguments, Karamat stood unwavering like a shield between me and the storm of shame that loomed. The elders exchanged confused glances. My father tried to protest, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment, but Karamat didn't allow a second of disrespect to touch me. He kept repeating the same words, Asan. "Make her my wife, right here, right now. Chacha Kareem's anger slowly turned into a conflicted silence. His own son had just ruined his name, and yet here he was, choosing to marry the very girl whose return had brought disgrace. The crowd watched, waiting for judgment to fall, but instead, a village elder finally stepped forward and nodded. So be it. If this is your choice, then let it be settled the right way. That very evening, in the same courtyard where I once played as a child, a simple Nika ceremony was held. No music, no celebration, just trembling words, the crackling sound of the village loudspeaker announcing our union, and Karamat's steady voice accepting me as his wife. I wore a simple shawl, my eyes lowered, my heart divided between guilt and gratitude. He didn't look at me with disgust. He didn't flinch while repeating the vows. When our eyes finally met, I saw a strange peace in his gaze, as if he'd already forgiven me, as if he never wanted perfection, only honesty. That night, I sat silently in the room that now belonged to us both. I expected awkwardness, anger, or cold silence. But when Karamat walked in, he gently closed the door and sat at a respectful distance. Forget the past, he said quietly. If you're willing to change, I'll never remind you of anything that happened before today. My eyes welled with tears. Why? I whispered. Why would you still accept me? He looked away for a moment and then replied, because I saw what they did to you, and I know it wasn't your sin, it was your dream that betrayed you. And for the first time, I cried not because of pain, but because someone finally saw me beyond my wounds.